I held our marriage certificate in my hands, the one I cherished for 3 years. I still remember the ink barely dry on the day we signed, me trembling with joy, her with that smile I thought meant forever. But now I stared at the truth like a cold slap. It was fake. Not expired. Not misplaced. Fake. A forged signature. A non-existent registry. A lie in legal form. 3 years of believing I was her husband. 3 years of planning birthdays, making love, surviving storms, and all that time, she played me like a fool. My hands trembled as I sat in the government office, the clerk's bored voice still echoing in my mind. "Sir, there's no official record of your marriage. This certificate isn't real." I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened. My world cracked, and behind that crack a darkness I never knew I had inside. Why? Why would she do this? Was I a stand-in for someone else? A puppet in some twisted game? Was she ever mine? That night, I watched her sleep beside me, peaceful, innocent, beautiful. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her awake and ask her why she did it. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I memorized her face, her breath, her warmth, because I had already made my choice. If our marriage was fake, then so was I. So I disappeared. I planned every detail. Left behind just enough clues. Burned just enough evidence. A car crash on a rainy cliffside. A fire. A closed coffin. No body. And she cried. She cried at my funeral. I thought that would be enough. I thought she'd break. But then, just 3 weeks later, I saw her. Smiling. Laughing. On a date with another man. And that's when I knew she wasn't following the script. My name is Ryan. I'm not perfect. Never claimed to be. But if there's one thing I've always done right, it's love with my whole heart. I grew up in a small town, the kind where people wave at each other from porches and everyone knows who you were before your voice cracked. My father died when I was 11. My mother never remarried. So from a young age, I knew what it meant to hold a family together, to protect something fragile. Maybe that's why I fell for Alina the way I did. She was chaos wrapped in elegance, the kind of woman who made silence feel like poetry. We met at a friend's wedding, and while others were dancing under fairy lights, she stood by the dessert table, stealing macarons like a rebel in heels. I offered her a drink. She rolled her eyes and asked for coffee. 1 week later, we had our first date. 2 months later, I moved into her apartment. A year after that, I was down on one knee in our favorite bookstore, slipping a ring onto her finger as the smell of ink and paper wrapped around us. She said yes. Of course she did. God, I still remember her laugh that day. Like it could cure everything broken in me. We kept it simple, no big wedding. Just a courthouse, a few friends, and a lunch reception where she danced barefoot in her white sundress. She never cared for extravagance, said love didn't need chandeliers or 1,000 guests. Just truth, or so I believed. Our marriage, from the outside, looked like something out of a love story. We made Sunday breakfasts a ritual. We fought over which side of the bed was hers both, apparently. She cried watching animal rescue videos, and I kissed her eyelids when nightmares came. We adopted a dog named Milo who hated rain but loved belly rubs. She wanted kids, I did too. We just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Sure, there were small cracks. Days she'd go quiet out of nowhere. Nights she'd wake up crying and say it was just a dream she couldn't remember. But I never pushed. I gave her space. I thought that's what love was. I thought we were solid, until the day I needed a copy of our marriage certificate to apply for a joint property transfer. A simple formality, I thought. A 10-minute errand. That's all it was supposed to be. But one clerk's confused frown later, and everything I knew about my life, my love, my wife collapsed. I kept thinking maybe it was a mistake, a glitch, a lost record. But no. The certificate she gave me 3 years ago, it wasn't real. Which means the woman I loved didn't just lie to me. She legally never made me her husband. And that, more than anything, broke me. I didn't confront her right away. For 3 nights, I stared at the forged certificate locked in my desk drawer like it was a ticking bomb. I'd lie beside her in bed, pretending to sleep, while my mind spiraled into questions with no answers. Was it a mistake? Was it ever real? Or worse was I just a placeholder in a life she never truly planned to build with me? On the 4th night, I sat in the kitchen long after midnight, the hum of the refrigerator louder than my thoughts. Milo lay by my feet, his breathing slow, like he too sensed something was wrong. That's when I opened her laptop. I shouldn't have. I know that. But love makes you trust. Betrayal makes you paranoid. I told myself I'd just look at our wedding. Photos, maybe check her email to see if there was ever any marriage registration confirmation I missed. What I found instead shifted my entire world. There was a folder, hidden behind layers of subfolders with boring names like tax info and receipts. But this one was titled simply, just in case. And inside it, scans of documents I'd never seen before. A real marriage certificate only. It wasn't ours. It was hers with another man. The date? 4 years before she married me. The man's name? Adil Khan. My blood turned cold. I clicked open a few more files. Lease agreements, joint bank accounts, even travel bookings from just over a year ago. She wasn't just married before. She still was. There was no divorce decree, no legal separation, which meant one thing. I was the affair. I sat there, frozen, hearing her footsteps approach. She wore my hoodie, hers now, by default hand, looked sleepy, confused. You okay? Why are you up so late? I shut the laptop calmly. I smiled. I kissed her forehead. Couldn't sleep, I whispered. Just needed some air. Because in that moment, something inside me died. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't even going to cry. I was going to disappear. Because love may have made me blind, but betrayal? It taught me to act. The next few days were unbearable. I moved through the house like a ghost, haunted by memories that now felt counterfeit. Every smile she gave me, every I love you, echoed like a lie. Sometimes, I'd catch myself watching her while she folded laundry or made coffee, wondering, does she even feel guilt? Or was I just a story she told herself to stay entertained? At night, I lay next to her, and the silence between us screamed louder than any argument ever could. I tried to convince myself I was wrong. Maybe Adil was just someone from her past. Maybe the documents were old, forgotten. Maybe she just never got around to removing them. But I'd seen the timestamps. Receipts from 6 months ago, a hotel booking from last year, a wire transfer to his account marked for rent deli apartment. She was still funding him. Still connected. Still married. One evening, I sat on the balcony with a glass of whiskey I hadn't touched. Milo sat beside me, his head on my lap, as if he knew I needed someone anyone to stay grounded. My mind was a storm. Should I ask her outright? Demand the truth? But then what? What would I do if she confirmed everything? Would I scream? Would I beg her to choose me? I hated that even now, a part of me still wanted her to choose me. That thought disgusted me. I had spent 3 years building a life with a woman who had never truly been mine. I tried to write her a letter. I started with, Alina, if you're reading this, it means I finally found the courage to leave. But the words blurred. The pen felt too heavy. One night I stayed up and just watched her sleep. Her hair spilled across the pillow. Her hand resting on my chest like she still needed me close. Does she love me in some twisted way? Was she living a double life out of confusion, or had this all been deliberate from the beginning? I began tracing back memories with new eyes. The time she panicked when I mentioned updating our will. The way she always dodged questions about meeting her extended family. Her refusal to post our wedding photos online said she was private. Said she hated social media. Lies. All of it. Lies. But here's the strangest part. Even with everything I knew, every fact staring me in the face, I didn't feel anger. I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped the soul out of my body and left me breathing on autopilot. The man I was, the husband I thought I'd become, he didn't exist anymore. I rehearsed how I'd confront her in my head 100 times, but in every version, she didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just looked at me with those eyes that used to melt my heart and shrugged. And that scared me more than anything. Because if she didn't love me, if she never did, then who the hell was I all this time? I thought I had hit rock bottom. I was wrong. One Thursday afternoon, while Alina was out grocery shopping, I finally did what I'd been dreading. I hired a private investigator. It felt dirty, dishonest. But after what I'd uncovered, I needed the truth, all of it. I gave the PI Adil's name, the documents I'd found, and the last known address from a lease Alina had saved on her laptop. He promised to get back to me in a week. He called me in 3 days. "Mr. Rayan," he said, his voice tight, cautious. "We need to meet. It's more complicated than you think." We met at a diner 30 minutes outside the city. He slid a folder across the table. My hands trembled as I opened it. Photos, flight itineraries, bank statements. There she was, my wife, at an airport in Dubai. But she wasn't alone. Adil was beside her, holding her hand, laughing. And the date on the photo? 2 months ago. Right after our anniversary. I couldn't breathe. But the next photo pushed me over the edge. It was a woman, holding a child. The woman was Alina. The child, he couldn't have been older than 2. The caption beneath the image, scribbled in pen, read, "Adil, Alina, and their son Rami." I stared at that name for so long it stopped looking real. She had a child. A family. A whole different life. And IAW's just the man in the shadows. The fool she shared stolen moments with. The one she played house with while raising another man's son overseas. The PI leaned in. "It looks like she travels back and forth. Never stays longer than a week with you before flying out again. She uses different names. But it's her." I wanted to scream, throw the table, collapse. But I just sat there. Because now, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about identity. Who is this woman? What kind of person can love you in the morning, kiss you goodnight, and then board a flight to another life the next day? The worst part? I looked at that chill and he had her eyes. I could almost picture her singing to him. Holding him the way she used to hold me when I was sick. Whispering secrets to a toddler while I, her legally fake husband, folded laundry waiting for her to come home. I left the diner in silence. The wind outside was sharp, biting through my jacket. But it still didn't hurt as much as knowing I was never her real life. She walked through the front door humming, carrying grocery bags like it was any other day. I sat on the couch, silent, waiting. "Hey babe," she said, setting the bags down. "Can you believe the line for tomatoes today? Ridiculous." I didn't respond. She turned. Her smile faded the moment she saw the man I had become cold, still, not blinking. "Rayan?" she asked, voice cautious. I stood and tossed a folder onto the table. It landed with a dull thud. She didn't move. Her eyes flicked down. And then she froze. "Open it," I said. My voice sounded foreign. Hollow. "WW, what is this? You tell me." Her fingers trembled as she opened the file. She flipped through the photos. Her lips parted. Her face went pale. But no tears. No explanations. Just silence. "You have a son," I said. "A husband. A life I was never part of." She sat down like her knees gave out. "Rayan, I know," I snapped. "No lies. No stories. Just the truth. I deserve that much." She pressed her hand to her forehead, like the weight of her deception was finally catching up. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I laughed. Loud. Bitter. 3 years of a fake marriage isn't something that just happens, Alina. She looked up at me, eyes glassy, but not crying. "It wasn't fake to me. We're not legally married." I shouted. "You forged a certificate, lied to my face. And all this time you were flying back and forth, raising a child with another man." "I didn't love him anymore," she whispered. "I left him. I couldn't leave Rami. The name stung. Rami. The son she never told me about. The life I never got to be part of. So you stayed married to him, I said, pacing now, rage boiling in my chest, and kept me in the dark like a fool. What did you think would happen? That I'd never find out? I thought I could build something real with you, she said quietly. Real? I scoffed. You built a house of lies, Alina, and I lived in it like an idiot. Tears finally came, quiet, fragile. But they didn't move me, because they weren't for me. They were for what she was about to lose. Please, she whispered. I never stopped loving you. You made me feel safe, normal. With Adil, it was chaos. But with you with me, I cut in. You were someone else. A version of yourself you couldn't maintain forever. Silence fell between us. I looked at her one last time. The woman I thought I knew. The woman I thought I loved. And I said the words I never thought I'd say. Alina, as far as I'm concerned, you buried me the day you lied to me. And I walked out the door. I didn't go home that night. Not to her. Not ever again. Instead, I drove with no destination, the city lights blurring past like memories I didn't want to hold on to anymore. I ended up in a cheap motel on the edge of town. It smelled like cigarettes and regret. But for the first time in weeks, I slept. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I didn't care if the marriage wasn't legally binding. I wanted a record of this madness. I wanted something official that said, this happened. I wasn't crazy. When I told the lawyer everything, she just stared at me, stunned. You're lucky, she said softly. Men don't usually find out until it's too late. Lucky. Was that what I was? I filed for a restraining order not because I thought Alina would hurt me, but because I needed her out of my life in every way. I closed our joint bank accounts, canceled the utilities on the house. Even Milo I had the vet microchip him under my name. And I took him with me when I moved into a small apartment downtown. He stayed quiet for days, curling at my feet like he too was grieving. Alina sent messages. Dozens. Emails. Voicemails. Even a handwritten letter slipped under my office door. All left unopened. She begged to meet. Said she owed me explanations. Said she still loved me. But I didn't need her words anymore. She'd spent years scripting her story. A performance so well rehearsed that even I believed it was love. But it wasn't. It was theater. And I was just another actor she directed. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the old house one last time. The garden I'd once planted was overgrown. The wind chime she loved barely moved in the breeze. I left my keys in the mailbox. I didn't knock, didn't look back. Let her come home to an empty echo of the life she faked. I vanished from her world entirely. Deleted my socials. Changed my number. Moved cities. Took a remote job that paid less but gave me peace. I started therapy. For the first time, I said the words out loud. I was never truly loved. And it didn't break me. It healed something inside me. Months passed. Then, one rainy evening, I received an anonymous email with a subject line that made my chest tighten. He left her. No body. No signature. Just a photo attachment. I clicked. There she was, Alina, sitting alone at a train station. No suitcase. No child. Just her, staring into the distance. Her eyes, once so alive, looked hollow. There was no pity in me. No vindication either. Just silence. Because the truth was, she destroyed everything with her own hands. She had 2 lives, and in the end, she lost both. I closed the email, and I deleted it. Because I was done being part of her story. Now I was writing my own. And this time, there were no lies. Just me, Milo, a quiet apartment, and the slow, steady rebuilding of a life no longer based on illusions. I still think about her sometimes. Not out of longing, but as a reminder, even the people who say they love you can be living someone else's life behind your back. And if you're not careful, they'll write you into their lie until you don't recognize who you are anymore. But me? I came back. I reclaimed myself. And the man who faked his death? He never existed. But the man who rose from the ashes? He'll never be fooled again.